Alright, so anybody that's been watching today knows I'm back up to my old tricks of doing some videos and throwing a bunch in at one time. I have transitioned over from burning the stump naturally, and now we're going to show you why I'm burning the stump today. So let's flip over to the stump and the fire. Okay, I have a bed of coals, plenty of ash, and heat. Now I've built this in such a way that it is hot. There are coals. There is a bed of ash. Now I'm still working on the stump. So for all those people that watch my stump videos, and I thank you so much, right there it is. Now there's enough heat that I don't want to get too close, because my phone probably wouldn't like that. So here is what's going to happen and how it's going to happen and why I'm doing it right now. So this is cast iron. It's been neglected. If you watched the last episode, you'll find out that a friend of mine gave this to me. It's good quality cast iron. It's been sitting outside long enough that there are marks and rust, and surface is all messed up. This is nothing. I have fixed these before, and there's even a little trace where there was some pine needles stuck in here. So back to the fire. I need a fire to heat up this. Notice, unlike so many people that take brushes, wire brushes, power tools, and things of that nature, I have not touched this cast iron. My grandmother would have kicked my butt. My aunt, uncles, they would have kicked my butt. Anybody that knew me growing up, they'd kick my butt. Really. I mean, let's just get to the facts. I was raised in the Appalachian Mountains, and this here cast iron needs to be treated properly. I want it to go in a kitchen. Now, part of my outdoor kitchen project was to find some cast iron. This piece has been given to me, and it was even requested that I make a video. So this is what cast iron is. It is a heavy composite of iron. It has been mixed with sand at a certain consistency so that it conducts heat well, but does not warp, damage, alter in any way. And the biggest threat to cast iron is when you heat it up to fire it. To restore it, you got to put in a fire. And to do that, you take the risk that if there's one flaw in the cast, it will break. So I'm hoping that's not going to be the case. Now I've done, pardon my poor camera work, but I'm about to play with fire and I don't want to get burned. So I have done a cast iron Dutch oven. Both parts had been out for 30 years. This has not been out that long, but it has been long enough that it's got damage. Now, first thing you want to do with cast iron is get it a little bit warm. Now, I've got it near the fire, and I'm going to tell you there's a trick to this. It's not as easy as just get it warm and stick it in the fire. Although, that is about what I'm going to do. Whew, that is hot. I burnt myself just a little bit. So, here we go. First things first, got to get it near or in the fire. From this point on, my hands will not touch that cast iron. That cast iron has to get red hot. So, this is the first part. I got to get it in there and get it to start popping. Now what I'm listening for, and I don't know if you can hear because it's going to get hard to get close to this fire with this phone. I'm afraid of getting the battery too hot. but that pot made a popping sound a couple times. Now, anybody saw before, this is my stick that usually sits on the tripod from an old brain's not thinking in high heat, evidently. From an old telescope. There we go. I'm going to try to use that stick to aid that along, but I'm going to have to get something a little bit heavier. So you want to bear with me, and I'm going to tell you that I now smell the iron. That's a good sign. It's gotten to temperature. It hasn't cracked. It's still going relatively well. Okay, sticks are a great tool. They're everywhere. Water hose handy as always. But if you're looking, and if you've ever been into an antique store or somewhere like that, the biggest thing that really does nothing for me and really makes me kind of upset is when somebody takes cast iron and they don't know what to do with it, but they want to sell it. So the first thing they do is put some kind of paint on a piece of cookware. Now, what a lot of people may not realize, that old cookware still has life in it. It can still be used, but you've got to get rid of paint and whatever else somebody else has done. Now, if you watch, I am slowly shifting these coals and trying to get this pan to settle down there. Also, if you notice, I can scrape that rust already with my stick. So what I'm trying to do is just get these coals under the pan. The pan's hot. It is properly seasoning to the heat. It is curing is probably the best word. It's going to bring the cast iron back to its original state. And at this point, everything I do strips away everything that's ever been done to this particular piece of cast iron. Okay, now as I mix the coals around it, I'm also making the bed of heat around it. And now, ash or no ash, it doesn't matter. Gosh, that's hot. I'm trying to stay back, but you need to be able to see this. So bear with me, try to zoom in. Ooh, that's better. Okay. Now, sticks in there. Watch this. It's just like dirt. The rust. Watch this. Look at this. I'm taking that rust off. You can see it changing already, can't you? This is how you treat a cast iron skillet, and why you don't need a wire brush, people. Plus, if you take a wire brush that has a different consistency of metal, and I don't know what else to tell you, but it's got a different consistency of metal. That metal takes and drops properties into your cast iron. Well, if that metal isn't food safe, you just took a chance of possibly poisoning yourself. Okay, so anybody that's watching this, I know you can see this. Do you see that? It's clean already. It is, but it isn't. This is the best way to describe this. This is kind of a long process. The worse off the cast iron, the longer it's been abused, the more this process has to take place. the more change has to happen to the rust. The heat changes the properties of the rust and makes the rust fall off. Okay? That's the best way to tell you this. The heat from the fire changes the properties of the rust. Look at this. Changes the properties of the rust